It's very common for narcissists to make big, life changing decisions just off of impulses. And what that means is when they make a decision off an impulse and then they later regather their calmness, sometimes they think that they can simply reverse those decisions, that they can simply reverse decisions that they made, even if that decision hurt somebody really badly or cut some form of cord, burnt some form of bridge that they didn't really mean to bridge, but they did nevertheless. Narcissists, they operate in this way where when their frustration, anger, jealousy, or any other negative feeling that gets the better of them consumes them, it's very common that they make very big decisions off the back of that. And then later, when they realize they made a bad decision, they want to reconcile, change things, undo the effect of that decision. And that's not always possible. Normal, healthy people tend to have a measured, collected way of carrying themselves through lives. And if there's one thing that's important to learn, and most people learn this relatively young, but some people, like narcissists and other people with mood or personality disorders, sometimes they don't get right, or at least for a long time, is that you should never make a big life altering decision when you're in a place of mental exhaustion, overwhelmment, or you're just temporarily overcome by some form of all consuming emotion. Because normal, healthy people, they know when they make a big decision that has an impact, whether it's resigning from a job, breaking up with your partner, or some other form of decision. Maybe you decided to cut your lease on your house that you're renting, so you won't be renting it anymore, and you can contractually agree to that, and so on. Maybe making big purchases. You can't simply undo those decisions when you're in a different mindset and you realize actually that was a bad choice. But what we see very often with narcissists, especially when it comes to romantic relationships, is a lot of times narcissists are, because they have this incessant need to control, because they have this incessant need to be one step ahead of the other person. Sometimes narcissists, the only way they can do that is by discarding somebody or devaluing somebody so heavily that it's not fixable, or resigning from a job, or maybe even selling an asset, something like that. Sometimes they make those big decisions, and in particular in romantic settings, they want to prove to the person that they're better than them, that they don't need the other person. Or maybe they realize that the other person is starting to see through their mask, and it's only a matter of time before they won't want to be with the narcissist anymore. And so the narcissist, instinctively knowing they can't change their ways and they can't change the distasteful, for the lack of a better word, person they are beneath that mask, they'll sometimes discard the person because at least that way they feel in control. But obviously, once narcissists have made a big decision and they're having to stick with it, their subconscious knows more than their conscious. And when they subconsciously know that they pushed somebody away who they shouldn't have pushed away, or they released something that was really good to them that they no longer have in their lives, they so often want to find some way of bringing that thing back in. And you can't always do that because people are not things. People are people. People have emotions. People have memories. And people, when they realize they're dealing with a narcissist, somebody who tries to wear a mask so that they're not repulsed by them, then of course those people aren't going to want to deal with them anymore. And the narcissists have to face these painful lessons that they don't really know how to deal with, which is the lesson of regret, the lesson of having to deal with the consequences of their action. But because narcissists don't take accountability and they don't know how to process feelings of regret and remorse properly, they've become accustomed to doing all kinds of mental gymnastics to get around that acceptance of their own bad choice. And a lot of times their mental gymnastics falls within one of two categories. The first is they're in denial and they still expect the other person to come back to them, or the person that they burnt in their decision, they expect that person to somehow come chasing back to them. And the reason they can sustain that piece of denial is because they live in this delusion of grandiosity where they're somehow super special and people will want them no matter what. The other kind of limb that they fall under when they make these bad decisions, the other limb is that they somehow convince themselves that the other person is losing out. Or maybe the other person even deserved it, had it coming, even though that wasn't the mindset the narcissist was in at the time they actually made the decision. Because narcissists, what they do sometimes is they shape shift reality, retrospectively to conform to their gaslight way of thinking so that they can continue to live their lives without taking accountability for their actions. So you can see how people with narcissistic personality disorder, they're never going to be at peace because their subconscious mind is fully aware of the bad decisions and their self-sabotaging nature. That's their subconscious, but their conscious mind is good at gaslighting themselves. So they're always trying to tell themselves a rational story that justifies their toxic ways and how they're never at wrong. And because they're never at wrong, they don't have to change who they are, which suits them perfectly because they're unable to change who they are. It comes with the territory of the disorder. So, and that, of course, contrasts with healthy people who tend to be aware that if they make a bad decision, they have to own up to it later. You have to, if you mess up your bed, you have to sleep in a messed up bed. But narcissists like to mess up a bed and then make the other person sleep in it while they sleep in a nicely made bed. So narcissists at the surface, they always have like a very clean bed to sleep in, so to speak, on the surface. But deep down, there's spikes under the mattress. The temperature of the bed is, super hot, super cold, very uncomfortable. Because even though narcissists try to tell themselves a good story, they can never fully believe that story. And they're always falling into the consequences of their actions, which is they make bad decisions for themselves. They later regret those decisions, but because they can't really accept that feeling of regret for long, they can't own up to it. What they do is they somehow try to make it seem like it was the other person's fault. They blame shift in their mind, and it really suits them that they have this way of recounting narratives that they believe. So they have this self-deceptive nature. They keep gaslighting themselves. So just know that you can never reason with a narcissist. You can never have a reasoned outcome with a narcissist because they go from one kind of persona to another. It's almost like they can shapeshift who they are entirely, or their outlook on somebody entirely, or their outlook on life entirely, just to soothe their inner self that they haven't done anything too wrong, because it's the only way they know how to live with themselves.